Welcome back to another episode of the Vision Pod, where guests are hand-picked to bring value to your everyday life. Enjoy. Today's episode, I'm interviewing Terry Balisky. Terry is a farmer, businessman, and family man.
In this meeting, the evangelist explained the way of salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And that made sense to my dad.
Okay.
And he accepted the Lord, a number of his brothers and friends, and that was in November. In Acts talks about being baptized. Well, he wanted to be baptized. The ice was frozen, but they chopped a hole in the ice and baptized a number of them right through the ice. But anyhow, that was a turning point in his life, both in becoming a believer. That was in 1918. He lived here with his brothers, single, until he was 32. And then he and his brothers said, we're never going to have a family or anything. He came here when he was 18 years old.
Okay.
And from North Dakota.
Yeah.
His original family immigrated from the Ukraine in 1898 and settled in North Dakota, but he couldn't find, when he became 18, there was no farmland that he thought was any good, so he heard that there's good land up in Canada. So he got a train from Minot, North Dakota to Estevan, and if you got to Estevan, the Canadian government would give you a free ticket anywhere west in the prairies to look for land. So he checked out all the land all the way up till the rail ended in Edson. Mm-hmm. That's where the end of the rail. But he had heard that there's really good land in the Peace River country near Grand Prairie. But from Edson to Grand Prairie was 250 miles. You had to walk across muskeg and the forest.
Yeah.
Tough going.
Yeah.
He could have rented a horse, but he and his brothers decided they'd walk. And it took 10 days to walk the 250 miles. They lived on prairie chickens or grouse, rabbits. They had lard and salt and a bannock. They'd have like a flour. They'd make sort of a paste and did pretty well. Well, when they got here, they found, there was land available, and they looked around and they settled down by the Bear Lake, where the farm still is.
Where they are today. So is the land they have now kind of the original land still?
It's the original farmland that he homesteaded.
Crazy.
Back in 1912.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you farmed for, how many years were you farming for?
42 years.
Okay, cool.
We took over. My brother Bob, he went to Old Ag College, and I went to Breen Bible College, and I had intended to go to university, but when in Bible College, one of the courses, the guy said, write 5 things out that you want to do after you finish this winter. And he said, we'll go, and it was a course on career development. And he said, no, you write those 5 things down and pray about them, and at the end of the course in March. It ran from September to the end of March. And I did. Well, the top of my list was I was going to go to university and become an agriculturist. And then had other things. I enjoyed selling. I enjoyed a lot of different things, but through that winter, without a doubt, the Lord said, you should go farming.
Wow.
And we had taken on some homestead land out across the Smoky River, right on the banks of the Smoky River. And Bob, my brother, was farming on the home place, but he said, if you join up with me, we'll work together and I'll take out some homestead land. And my dad sold us the farm. And one of the big reasons that when Dad sold us the farm, he also didn't want the money. He said, just pay me on a monthly basis. But I'll give you title to the land so that you have equity to borrow money.
Okay.
And that was
Wow.
a big help because we were able to use that equity because he had his land paid for and he had 7 quarters. And we were able to develop the land out at, we call it Goodwin, or across the Smoky River, and also buy more farmland around Bear Lake. I just thank the Lord that he provided a way, and it was exactly what I was supposed to do. I've never regretted it. Sure, there were tough times, very difficult times in farming and in business. When we were developing land out at Goodwin, we also had a need for a lot of machinery because we had that farm and the Bear Lake farm. So we start going down to southern Alberta where there was a lot of machinery and would buy used machinery and truck it up. And when we start going into Montana, Nebraska, Colorado, and haul up machinery, and we'd use it and then sell it. And that was very profitable.
Okay.
We made some good money on that because at the same time as we were opening up land, a lot of other guys were developing homestead land and they needed machinery. And that's what led us to get into the John Deere business.
Wow.
We were buying this machinery and selling it, and John Deere owned the store in Grand Prairie. It was owned by the company themselves. Normally they don't retail, but this one store they owned, and they wanted to get out of the retail. And they had a young guy, Bob Reimer, who was here. He just got out of university and he was managing the store for John Deere. He really wanted to go corporate with John Deere. He didn't want to stay in Grand Prairie, and he said, hey, you guys, this business would be for sale if you guys would buy it. We said, well, man, that would take quite a, how much do you want for it? And he gave us the number. It was just about $300,000. Well, we didn't have any extra money at all. However, as we talked to him, he said, well, we'll work out a deal for you, and because you know the machine business, buying and selling, and we sold a lot actually through him, right through the John Deere store. Well, the year we bought, the farm economy really turned, it was tough. The grain prices shot up and machinery really went up in price. So we had gone to the bank and borrowed money. Our first payment was, we took it over the 1st of May, but we had to make a payment on the end of May of $30,000, which was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, that first month we had a profit of exactly $30,000.
Wow.
You know, as I think about it today, it was an absolute miracle.
Yeah.
And after that, we were always able to make our payments until the mid '80s, when things went. Well, we didn't pay attention to the business. The fertilizer business that we started up in '75 did very well. Ralph was the manager, and was a very good manager. And he sort of gave direction even at Prairie Coast. It was called Peace Farm Power then. We changed the name.
Okay.
And
what made him a good manager?
anytime you start a business, honesty, doing what you say you'll do, and just being a friend to your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Customers always aren't the easiest to work with, but you work with you become their friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they will become very loyal if you treat them fairly, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
They become very loyal, and that's been the case through the years. Here at Prairie Coast, we've always, I don't know how many times we've been John Deere #1 dealer in Canada. And you have to, and John Deere they want 50% of all the sales of farm equipment. That's their line.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't make that, they're a very rigid company. They have very strict rules. Sometimes we wouldn't always agree with them, but we found that they were usually right, even though we thought we could do things differently. Dennis, when he took over, he really listened to what John Deere was saying. He was young
Okay.
when he took over.
Yeah.
He was, I think, 27 or something. And he just paid attention to what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they told him was that, you don't have enough of a market share in the Grand Prairie area. You're going to have to expand beyond Grand Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we start buying other dealerships out. We bought Fairview, La Creek, Dawson Creek. Then, Spirit River was absorbed into it. Beaver Lodge was absorbed into it. And then we bought dealerships all the dealerships in British Columbia. And there was 8 of them, all the way down to Nanaimo.
Wow.
And it was a lot of risk.
Right.
It wasn't like...
So what would you say kept you going and kept you pushing for more and more stores?
Partially John Deere.
Okay.
Saying you guys have to expand. And I think one of the things that we made a practice of is meeting together as the brothers and praying. And when you pray together, you get along.
Yeah.
Because, nobody's perfect. And so every week on a Monday morning, we would get together and have a Bible study. And Ralph, my oldest brother, usually would lead that. Eventually he did.
Right.
And, some of the, like, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 commit your way to the Lord and He'll direct your path.
Mm-hmm.
You hang on to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some of the Psalms, Psalm 34 and 37, there's some of the promises that God gave to David. Grab a hold of them and say, okay, I'm going to
claim it.
You said it, I'm going to claim it.
Yeah, that's right.
And that made the difference in, you know, we always didn't agree.
Mm-hmm.
We would have a board meeting once a week as well, usually after the prayer time, and didn't always see eye to eye, but we never left the meeting where we didn't have unity. We'd say, let's work this out. What are we going to do? And that's what kept us together.
Wow.
And we worked together for, well, I just sold out a few years ago to Todd, and we've been in business since '73.
Wow.
And
yeah, so that's pretty impressive. There's lots of like warning around getting in business with family, and you hear a lot of ugly stories, but seems like you kind of figured out how you could make it work.
well, we give all credit to the Lord. It wasn't our doing.
Right.
We had a good foundation. Our parents set a good foundation. And man, Dad was very strict. He wasn't a big talker, but when he said, boys, this is the way it should be, he was right. We didn't always think he was, but it turned out that way. So it set a good foundation. And the other thing that our parents said, if you can't get along with your family, who will you get along with? And they insisted that we get along, even though we would fight like dogs, cats.
Yeah.
But you'd never hold it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So, anyhow, and then life, we just really went through some tough times. Like I said, business is not for the faint of heart. Business is tough. And if you think you can get into business, oh man, this is going to be easy. It isn't. It's constantly changing. And you have to change and
adapt.
And in our case, we are thankful that the Lord would guide us. And we had a strong faith.
What were some of the biggest challenges for you being a business owner?
I think probably the biggest challenge was trying to get enough money to keep the business going.
Okay.
When like we had a building supply center, we're kind of entrepreneurs and we tried different things. We had a truss plant, build houses.
Okay.
Had a real estate business, Sutton Realty.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Cheryl had that, but she sold it and went into Century 21.
Okay.
And, you know, the more you diverse, the more complex life is. I think if I were to do it again, say, focus on the smaller picture. Don't look so broad.
Okay.
And that would be, we tried too many things and not all of them. Like building houses, we didn't know how to build houses.
Yeah.
And that was a very costly thing because a lot of them, well, what did you make on that? Well, didn't do very well on it, and
Yeah.
so you have to come up with the extra money.
Mm-hmm.
I think my advice is if you're going to go into business, pick something, stay with it. If something else comes along that will add to the business, like the fertilizer really added to our business. The building supply did not.
Mm-hmm.
And we should have not got into that because we didn't know enough about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Like, pick something and then stick with it, and then
Yeah,
work it out till it
Work
picks up
it-
speed.
so
Yeah.
it makes sense to you, and pick something that you like doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like what a business that you're in, get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stay with it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are scared to move. Fear will cripple you. And Jesus talks a lot about fear not, in Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
He says, don't fear. And that's, I think, as a Christian, Satan wants us to be fearful and say, oh, I don't know if I should do that. That could happen. It'll just wither you down to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you be bold and trust the Lord. And sometimes things don't turn out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's just a catwalk.
Yeah.
It's there's difficult times. But all I can say is now that I'm in my 80s, man, I look back and say, man, I can't believe the things I went through, how the Lord took me through them. At the time, I thought it was impossible.
Hmm.
This is just an impossible thing. But you keep plugging. You don't give up. You might be flat on your back and the mud's flying far and thick. You roll over and get up.
That's
and
right.
keep going.
Yeah.
And and I think a strong faith is where it's really at. If you don't have a strong faith that God Almighty is there to protect you, the Bible has so many promises for us, but we don't claim them.
Yeah.
And that's where we, as Christians, really go wrong.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I always didn't.
Okay.
But when I look back, yeah, it was a good thing. And then I had a wonderful wife.
Mm-hmm.
Never did she say, oh man, you really made a big mistake. She was always supportive.
Hmm.
She'd give advice, say, we should do this and do that. But when we were up against the wall, she didn't throw up her hands and say, now what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
She'd say, well, let's work this out and we'll make it
Yeah.
work. And I have to say it's Judah. I don't know if you have a girlfriend or not, but pray that the Lord will give you a wife that'll be supportive, loving, and is a believer. Because if you have those things in your life, there's no end to what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you choose the wrong one, and the Lord cares far more about who you choose than even you. You think, boy, I have to really pray about it, and He'll lead you to the right person. Mars wasn't when we first met, it wasn't an easy time because she she was from a totally different background than I came from.
Hmm.
And she was in university, and here we were on the farm, and she knew nothing about the farm. But I remember when we first met, I felt this is the kind of lady that I'd like to marry someday.
Hmm.
Took her a while to think the same way, but
Reciprocate that.
eventually, after 4 years, and we didn't see each other. But anyhow, all I say to you, Judah, is pray about your partner
Hmm.
and have them prepared to
Mm-hmm.
by the Lord for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that's kind of my story. I don't know what else I can tell you that.
Yeah, no problem. That was awesome. That's perfect for today. I have one fun question to end it off. What would you do if you were king of North America?
I'm thinking there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I want to be, I think one of the things is justice,
Hmm.
be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's the same. Treat people who they are, not as what you want them to be, because everybody, God has made us all unique,
Mm-hmm.
and try to be wise in searching out what is the best road to go under God's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
This world has been sidetracked by Satan, and he's still there messing us up. We're not perfect, Judah, and you'll mess up, but the thing is, confess when you have failed, recognize your failure and confess it and go on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hang on to it. Let
That's
it go.
right. Yeah.
And but if I were king, I'd say be just and fair
Hmm.
to all people.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's about all.
Thanks for coming on my podcast, Terry. Appreciate it.
If it makes any sense to you. One of the things I didn't mention is, and I should have, it's very important to get involved in different activities in church or Bible school, and if you're blessed, tithe. Never stop tithing, because the Lord will bless you if you tithe. When I look back at the times that we've gone through, and sometimes we've made commitments that are going to be tough, but the Lord provided.
Hmm.
So I think choose different places that you can be used. You don't have to be in a lot of different activities, but your home church, and then if you can something outside your home church, get
For sure.
involved
That's right.
and serve the Lord. Don't have it all focused on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because it becomes a selfish motive then.
It's a crutch too, like a self-obsession.
Yeah,
Just
pride.
yeah.
Pride just starts coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and God hates pride.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why, if you're ever in business, he humbles you. He told, "Why go through tough times?" Because you can't be very proud when you're up against it.
Yeah.
You lean on the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyhow, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Judah, I just